The room before Ambassador Chen resembled the mouth of a gigantic creature. 700 meters of polished crystal walls curved upward into the darkness. Floating platforms held 47 species of creatures, each suspended in the air by technology humanity had yet to fully understand. Some of the platforms held single creatures. Other planets housed entire colonies. Their collective consciousness was represented by geometric patterns of light. Chen stood alone on a human platform. His gray suit seemed simple compared to the elaborate clothing and biological displays around him. He had been standing for 6 hours. The Galactic Council hadn't allowed him a break. They don't believe in mercy either, he thought. High Chancellor Volsun spoke to him from the central god. Vexali is a living crystal being, light pulsating through the geometric patterns within his body. He has served the council for 3 millennia. His voice echoed throughout the room without the need for speakers, a deep rumble the humans could feel in their very bones. Ambassador Chen, humanity has been present on this council for 52 standard years. In that short time, your species has violated 217 treaties, terraformed planets without authorization, established colonies in star systems claimed by other species, refusal to share technological discoveries as required by council law. You rejected the patent system that had maintained order for 10,000 years. Chen said nothing. There was nothing to say. All the accusations were true. The podium to the left flickered. A Krell representative began speaking, blinking 6 eyes in turn. The humans have destroyed our trade agreements. They are copying our technology and selling it at prices we cannot match. They ignored millennia of protected intellectual property. Another voice, this time mechanical and cold. A synthetic cacophony. Humanity weaponized artificial intelligence beyond agreed limits. It created war machines that violated sentient rights treaties. And so it went on and on. Each species was dissatisfied. Everyone had been wronged in some way by humanity. As Chen listened, he remembered how excited humanity had been 50 years ago when the Galactic Council had contacted them. At last, they were no longer alone. At last, they could join the community of civilized species. But the Council had rules. Too many rules. Rules about which planets you can settle. Rules about how fast your species can expand. Rules about technological development. Rules about trade. Rules about military might. Rules written by a species that has been around for thousands of years and feels there is no reason to rush things. Humanity had been trying to follow the rules for about 5 years, but they realized that following the rules meant accepting that humanity would forever be an inferior species, bound, controlled, and denied the ability to reach its potential. So they stopped following the rules. The Volo Sun crystals glowed brighter. We have been discussing this for months. We have tried diplomacy and sanctions, but nothing has worked. Humanity refuses to accept the order that has brought peace across the galaxy for 10,000 years. Therefore, we must vote. The chamber fell silent. Chen could hear his own heartbeat. The motion he will present to the council is simple. Forsun continued. I propose the expulsion of humanity from council space. All human colonies, stations and ships must retreat to the outer rim within 10 standard cycles. Any human presence in council sector beyond this deadline will be considered an act of war. Chen closed his eyes. The outer rim. There was a center to the galaxy, where ancient races lived in perfect order. Council sector then became a civilized, protected place. Beyond lay the outer rim, a lawless region overrun by pirates and criminals and where failed races lay dying. Who wants to speak before the vote? Foran asked. Chen's dais rose, next to the Prime Minister. Behind him, at the far end of the human platform, Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood motionless. She hadn't moved in 6 hours. Her dark eyes watched them all. I would like to speak, Chen said quietly. Folus's light dimmed slightly. He allowed it. 50 years ago, Chen began. Humanity received your message. We were so happy we were not alone in the universe. We came to you to be part of your great civilization. We believed in your council and we believed in your laws. He paused, looking around the room. But your rules weren't made for. They were made by a species that has lived for thousands of years. A species that considers a century to be a blink of an eye. Your rules state that you can only colonize 3 new planets per century. Do you know how long a human lives? 80 years on average. That's what your rules tell humans. They will never see humanity expand beyond a handful of worlds. The Sentience Treaty was established to protect all species. The Synthesis Accord blocked that. It was established to protect your interests. Chen said, Every rule of this council favors those who already have power. You've spent millennia building your empire. Now you're using the rules to make sure no one else can challenge you. The chamber erupted in protest, spoken in dozens of languages, most of which Chen could not understand. Thorn raised one of his crystal hands and the commotion ceased. We maintain order, Thorn said, his voice cold. We maintain peace. What you call oppression, we call civilization. What you call freedom, we call chaos. You are still young, Ambassador. You don't understand what the galaxy was like before the Council. There were wars that engulfed entire star systems. There were genocides that wiped out entire species. Rules are in place for a reason. So maybe, Chen said quietly, it's time for new rules. Orson's entire body turned crimson red. He was angry. Proceed with the vote. Anyone in favor of exiling humanity to the periphery, signal now. Light began to appear across the chamber. A green light, indicating yes. Chen watched as the light grew. 1,000. The light filled the darkness like star. Finally the light died down, and a glowing number appeared on the speaker's podium. 84-6 yes, 1 no. Chen searched for the red light of the no vote. It was coming from a small podium in the far corner. Ambassador Talaria. Their species had been oppressed by the Council for centuries. Chen knew, treated weak and small. They understood. The motion passed. 4 announced, humanity is banished from Council space. All entity withdraw within 10 standard cycles. This meeting is over. The platform began to move. The species was leaving. Chen stood there watching them leave. Behind him Captain Okonkwo finally started. She stepped up next to him. Orders, Captain, she asked. For the first time in hours, Chen smiled. Send a message to Earth. Tell them to initiate Phase 2. Okonkwo raised his brows. They knew this was coming. We knew it was coming, Chen said. He turned to her and said, Commander, what do you think happens to a species that doesn't follow the rules? When all the other species demand punishment, they are banished, Okano said slowly. They are kicked out. Exactly, Chen said. They were free. The human platform descended towards the exit. As they moved out, Chen looked back at the vast room one last time. Thorson still stood in the central daylight, his crystal glowing. Chen cried. Ortuned, are you going to punish us? Chen said, that's not right. We are not banishing you. You are freeing us from the only thing that holds us back. Your rules. He stopped in the doorway. See you, Thorson. It was sooner than they expected. A platform carried them out into the corridor. Okonkwo waited until they were alone before speaking. You really planned this? Chen nodded. Military intelligence had been preparing for 3 years. Ever since they realized the Council would never allow them to truly grow. There were supply caches on the frontier, allies among the pirates and outcasts. There's technology the Council doesn't know about. It was developed without their precious patents. 40 billion people. There are 40 billion people in the Council universe. It would take 10 cycles to move everyone. It would be the largest migration in human history. Chen agreed. And most importantly, once we reach the outer rim, once we have overcome their rules and restrictions, humanity will finally be able to prove its true worth to the galaxy. They walked in silence for a while, their footsteps echoing off the crystal floor. Then finally, Okano spoke again. What's Phase 2? Chen smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Survive, evolve, and Captain, we will show them what happens when you exile the most adaptable species in the galaxy to a world without rules. Behind them, in the Council chamber, Thorson stood alone at the day. He had ruled for 3 millennia, overseeing the rise and fall of species and maintaining order across the galaxy. But something about the human ambassador's final words made him uneasy. There was a confidence in his voice. Not defeat, not surrender, confident. For the first time in a long time, Thorson felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, uncertainty. 3 days after the vote, the evacuations began. Governor Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of New Shanghai Station, watching the ships depart. Hundreds, thousands. A river of light flowed from Council space into the darkness of the outer rim. How many today? He asked his aide, checking the tablet. 17,000 ships, 2 million people, ahead of schedule. Webb nodded, but didn't smile. Ahead of schedule was a good thing. It meant there might be time to prepare before the Council's deadline. It meant they might survive what was to come. New Shanghai was humanity's first major colony in Council space, and 5 billion people called it home. Now it was emptying like water spilling out of a broken vessel. In 6 cycles it would be abandoned entirely. on the brink of being handed over to the council or destroyed. Webb had been governor for 8 years. He knew every street, every neighborhood, every person. Watching it all disappear was harder than he expected. An aide quietly said, "The Capitol inspectors are here again. They want to confirm your departure schedule. Please hold on," Webb said. He was tired of the Capitol inspectors. They came every day, making sure the humans were really gone, that no one was hiding, that no one was lagging behind, and that they were sure they knew they were no longer welcome. His comm beeped. Webb looked at the screen and smiled for the first time that day. Yuki Tanaka finally told the inspectors he'd be joining them in an hour. "You have to take this call," he said to his aide. He went to his private office and closed the door. Tanaka's face appeared on the communicator screen. She looked tired, yet excited. Webb could see behind her a laboratory full of unfamiliar equipment. "Governor," Tanaka said without so much as a greeting. "We've had a breakthrough," Webb said, sitting down gravely. "Tell me about the technology behind the Vexili shield," Tanaka said. "We've been trying to reverse engineer it for years. Under the congressional patent system, it would be illegal to even try. Well, it's no longer on congressional grounds. At least my lab isn't. I moved to the suburbs last week." She grinned. "We figured it out, not just how to copy it, but how to improve it. Our version is 30% more efficient than theirs. Governor, we can manufacture them at 1/10 of their cost." Webb felt something loosen in his chest. Perhaps it was hope. "When will production begin?" Tanaka said. "We've already started. We're currently building 20 factories. Within a year, all human spaceships will be equipped with shields." "Governor, we're not done yet. We have teams working on Krell weaponry, synthetic computers, Terran engines, all sorts of technology the Council has patented. We're going to destroy them all." Webb laughed. "I feel good. The Council will be furious." "The Council banished us," Tanaka said. Her smile was sharp. "They have no right to complain about what we do outside of their sphere." Webb sat in silence for a while after the call ended. Then he rose and returned to the observation deck. The ships were still sailing, still drifting out to sea, but now, as he looked at them, he saw no fleeing refugees. He was seeing the future. 3 cycles later, the exodus continued. Captain Exile watched with increasing interest as the human ships reached the open sea. She was a Quellan, a race that had seceded from the Council 2 centuries ago, refusing to accept its restrictions. Her people had become pirates, raiders, and survivors of the lawless darkness. "The humans are back," the lieutenant said. "This is the 3rd wave this week." Exile nodded. Her ship, the Shadow Dancer, had been tracking the human migration for weeks. She had attacked the first few human convoys, expecting easy targets. Refugees in distress were usually easy prey, but not the humans. Her ship still bore the scars of their first encounter. The humans had fought back with weapons that should not have existed. Technology closely controlled by the Council. Exile had lost 3 ships before calling off the attack. Then, to her surprise, she received a message from the humans. It wasn't a threat, but an offer. "Captain Exile," a human voice said. "We know who you are, we know what you do, and we want to hire you." Now she was sitting across from a human named Marcus Webb. They were on a human station called Freedom Point, which hadn't existed a month ago. Now it was a bustling port, with thousands of ships passing through. "You want to hire pirates?" Exile answered, not questioning. "Security services," Webb corrected, smiling. "We need escorts. We need guides to get us through the open seas. We need people who know how to survive in these waters." "So, what do you get?" Exile asked. Webb slid a datapad across the table. "Payment in weapons, technology, and resources, plus free access to human ports. No questions asked about their cargo or their past." Six's eyes widened as she saw the proposed payment. This was no ordinary trade goods, military-grade weaponry, advanced shielding, medical supplies highly controlled even by the Council. "Where the hell did you get all this?" she asked. "We made it," Webb replied simply. "We make many things now without charters or regulations from Congress." Exile was silent for a moment. Then, with a learned human gesture, he held out his hand. "Governor Webb, the deal is done." Webb shook his hand. "Welcome to the new order, Captain." 5 cycles after the banishment vote, Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, humanity's greatest warship. The open seas around her were no longer empty and dark, but filled with light. Human bases, human ships, human colonies, and not just humans. Krellan pirates were working in conjunction with human security forces. Talarian refugees had joined human colony. Species that had once belonged to the Council were beginning to arrive in small numbers, attracted by news of opportunity and freedom. Status report, Okonkwo ordered. Her tactical officers responded immediately. All evacuations were completed ahead of schedule. The relocation of 40 billion people was successful. 20 major stations were operational, 50 colonies had been constructed, and defenses were at 80% capacity. Weapons production was exceeding expectations. Dr. Okano at Tanaka reports that all reverse engineering projects have been successful. We now have working versions of 70% of the Council's technology. Our versions are cheaper and in many cases superior. Okano gave a small smile. What will the Council's reaction be? Intelligence reports increased communication between Council species. They are aware of our activities. There have been several formal complaints about patent infringement. The Council is threatening sanctions. Sanctions. Okano repeated the sanctions on those already banned. What are you going to do? You're being banned twice. The bridge crew laughed. They had nice voices. A confident, powerful admiral. The communications officer said. A transmission has been received from Council space. It is marked as urgent. Okonkwo straightened. Let me hear. The voice he heard was Krell. Dalil, Merchant Prince. Human vessel. This is an official warning from the Krell Trade Council. Your illegal technology is flooding our marketplace. You are destroying our economy. You are violating millennia-old patent law. This is unacceptable. I demand that production cease immediately. Okano signaled the communications officer to open the line. Your Highness Merchant Prince Darnier, this is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, of the Earth Federation. We are no longer bound by Council law. We are no longer bound by Council patent. If you don't like our product, don't buy it. Get out. She closed the channel and turned to the crew. Send this transmission to all human stations. Let them know the Council is scared. Let them know we are winning. 10 cycles after the expulsion vote, Governor Webb stood on the observation deck again. But this was not New Shanghai Station. It lay abandoned, empty and dim. This was Freedom Point, the capital of the Terran Federation. Ambassador Chen stood next to him. The diplomat had aged over the past year, but his eyes were still sharp. What do you think, Marcus? Webb asked, surveying the bustling station. We made it. I think we survived. We've done more than survive, Chen said quietly. We're thriving. Look at this place. Humans, Quellans, Terrians and dozens of other species, all working together and not bound by Council rules. The Council wouldn't allow this, Webb said. They're already complaining about us. Chen smiled. Let them complain. What can they do? We're not breaking their laws. We're just not following them. There's a difference. Webb turned to the ambassador. What happens next? Then Chen said, we will show the galaxy the true power of humanity. We will build an empire here, by our rules, not there. And when they finally realize what we've become, it will be too late to stop us. He paused. We thought the galaxy would banish us, that we would disappear, but we were wrong. We are not disappearing. We are evolving. And the rulers of evolution always find a way. Darrell the Merchant Prince stared at the quarterly report, and felt something he had never experienced in his 2,000 years of life. Fear. The Krell trading empire had dominated galactic commerce for 3,000 years. Their technology was top-notch and their prices were reasonable. They made huge profits. Every species in Council space bought Krell products because, until now, they had no other choice. Revenues are down 30%, his financial advisor said quietly. In every field, shielding technology, weapons, medical supplies, everything. How? Darrell demanded. They have the patents and the monopoly. This can't happen. The advisor brought up a holographic display. It's a human product. They sell the exact same technology for a tenth of our price. Sometimes the quality is better than ours. They don't care about patent. Darrell froze. His office overlooking Krell Prime's vast market. For centuries, ships had come here from far across the galaxy to trade. Now he noticed a difference. There were fewer ships, less activity, and the market had dwindled. Where exactly were these products sourced from? He asked. His advisor told him it was a human free port, a station on the outskirts. Anyone could go there. No questions asked, no Council inspections. They called it a neutral trading zone. I will appeal to the Council, Darnier said firmly. We demand enforcement of the patent. We demand sanctions be imposed on any species that trade with humans. The advisor hesitated. Prince Dullo, we have a problem. What problem? 12 species that are members of the council have already begun openly trading with humans. They say the prices are too good to refuse. They say it's necessary for the economy. Daryl felt his blood run cold. 12. Which one? Terran had led the way, but now Uran Drex, Malaran, and even the smaller synthetic planets were buying human products. Daryl sat down heavily. The council was supposed to be united. The council was supposed to enforce its own rules. If the 12 races were openly defiant of the patent system, the entire council would be in danger. He immediately ordered an emergency council meeting. 3 days later, Supreme Chancellor Vorn again appeared before the Galactic Council. This time, however, the atmosphere in the chamber was different. There was less uncertainty and less unity. The dais where the council members sat seemed farther away than before. "We are facing a crisis," Bolton began. His voice was as clear and calm as ever, but those who knew him well could sense the underlying tension. "Humans are disrupting our economic order. They are infringing our patents. They are undermining 10,000 years of stability." Dullal immediately chimed in. He demanded action, an economic blockade of the frontier, sanctions on all species trading with humans, enforced by military force if necessary. A new voice interrupted. "Ambassador Terran, I oppose this motion." Bolton turned to Terran's podium. "Explain." "Our economy is dying," Terran said bluntly. "The patent system has made us poor. Your trade restrictions have weakened us. The humans offer us better terms. Why should we refuse?" "Because it's the law," cried Daryl. "Because we agreed to it. We agreed to laws that benefit you." Another voice joined in. A representative of Dre. "The patent system protects the wealthy species. The rest of us barely survive. The humans are offering us another option." Forson held up his hand for silence. The council reluctantly complied. There could be no chaos. We could not allow any race to ignore our laws simply because it suited them. "So," Terran said quietly, "the laws may have to change." The council erupted in a whirlwind of debate, shouts in dozens of languages. Some races called for strict enforcement. Others defended the right to trade freely. The council, which had maintained order for 10,000 years, was falling apart before Volan's eyes. At Freedom Point, Admiral Okonkwo read the intelligence report with satisfaction. The council was debating. She told Governor Webb, 12 tribes are trading with us openly. 20 more are trading secretly. The patent system is collapsing." Webb nodded. "The refugee program is expanding every day," Okonkwo said. "Political activists, economic refugees, criminals fleeing congressional justice. They're all coming here. We're becoming a sanctuary." "It's great," Webb said. "Everyone who comes here is looking for an alternative to Congress." Another voice said there was a better way. A communications alert interrupted them. Okano checked the screen, her eyes wide. "Admiral, we have a request from the Quellan Home Fleet." "You wish to meet with the entire fleet?" Webb asked. "All of them?" Okonkwo confirmed. "We are asking about a formal alliance. They wish to join the Earth Federation." Webb and Okonkwo exchanged glances. The Quellan fleet was one of the largest pirate forces in the periphery. Thousands of ships, millions of people. If they joined the coalition, humanity would gain immense military power. "Tell them that," Webb said. "Admiral, begin further preparations. If the Quellans join us, others will follow." 6 months later, the Galactic Council was no longer on the ball. They were panicking. Economic figures were getting worse every week. Human freeports had become major trading hubs in the galaxy. Species that had been part of the Council for millennia had left to join the Earth Federation. Boran stood in his chambers and read the report. 50 species had officially joined the Federation, and another 100 were considering joining. The Council that once represented 47 species was shrinking. "We made a mistake," the advisor said quietly. The Vexari had served Bolton for 800 years. She had never questioned him before. "Explain," Bolton said. "We banished the humans. We thought they would fail. We thought they would beg to come back, but they thrived. They built a system that replaced everything we represented, and now the species are choosing their system over ours." Bolton turned to her. "What do you want me to do?" "Admit our mistakes. Apologize to the humans. And I want you to adapt," she said. "The humans are not our enemy. They show that our system is flawed. Perhaps it's time for reform." "Reform?" Fortune's light flashed red. "The Council has maintained order for 10,000 years. Our system works. Does it really work?" his advisor asked. "So why were so many people leaving?" Orton couldn't answer. Then an emergency alarm sounded. Every screen in the room lit up with the same message. The Skrill hive were attacking. 3 council worlds had fallen in the first wave. The Skrill were an aggressive species that lived outside council space. They had raided the borders for centuries, but never launched a full-scale invasion. The council had always been too powerful to resist. But they were no longer they were divided and weak, and Screamer knew it. Foreign rushed to the council chambers. An emergency meeting had already begun. The races were screaming. Some called for an immediate military response, others for a diplomatic solution. Several were already discussing surrender. Order. Fortunately, the chamber was silent. We will fight back with our fleet. We will protect the world. The council has faced threats before. Chairman, Ambassador Krell said hesitantly. Our fleet is weakened. Many ships were lost in the exodus. Others are guarding the trade route. We are not as strong as we once were. Boren felt the cold even though his crystalline body did not produce heat. How many ships could we send? Probably half the number the Skrulls had committed. The military coordinator reported. The room erupted again, this time with an explosion of terror. At the back of the room a small platform activated. It was Ambassador Terran. There was one option we hadn't discussed yet. Speak, Forsen said, but it seemed he already knew what was coming. Humans, Terran said. The Terran Federation has a massive fleet. They have new weaponry. They've been fighting pirates on the frontier for months. They have combat experience we lack. Not at all, Dalal cried. They've been expelled. We couldn't ask them for help. We would lose, Terran said simply. The Skrulls don't play by our rules of war. They don't accept diplomatic protocol. They will destroy us unless we fight them with everything we have, including the humans. Bolthan closed his eyes. 3,000 years of service to the Council, 3,000 years of maintaining order, and now to maintain that order, he must break it. Contact humanity, he said quietly. Tell them we need their help. Ambassador Chen read the message 3 times before he believed it. The Galactic Council was asking for help. The same council that had voted to expel humanity just 2 years. The council which had once denounced humanity as barbaric and dangerous, now begged him. Sitting in his office at Freedom Point, he considered his options. Outside his window, the station hummed with activity. Ships of dozens of species coming and go. The Terran Federation had grown into a force far beyond his imagination. They were powerful now, powerful enough to ignore the Council altogether. But that is not the human way. Humans do not ignore problems. They solve them. What do you think? He asked Admiral Okonkwo. She was standing beside his desk, reading the same message on her tablet. I think it's a trap, Okonkwo said bluntly. The Council would not ask for our help unless they were in dire straits. And desperate humans are dangerous. But if we refuse, Chen said slowly, the S-car will destroy the Council. Billions will die. Entire species may become extinct. That's not our problem, Okano said. The Council made the decision. They exiled us. Let them suffer the consequences. Chen stared at her for a moment. Do you really think so? That we should just let them die because they were wrong about us? Okonkwo's jaw clenched. Then she sighed. No, I don't. But Ambassador, I don't trust them. Neither do I, Chen agreed. But we can negotiate. We can help them on our terms. What terms? Okano asked. Chen smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Full reinstatement, absolution for all past actions, and formal recognition of the Terran Federation as an equal power with the Council. Okano laughed. They will never agree to that, and then they will face the SER alone. Chen said, deliver the message, Admiral. We'll see how desperate they are. 3 days later, Supreme Chancellor Vorsen stood before the Council again. News from the front grew worse by the hour. 5 more worlds had fallen. Skrull had not merely conquered, but destroyed. Cities burned and people fled. The Council fleet fought valiantly, but followed the traditional rules. Formal challenge, proportionate response, avoid civilian casualties. The Skray never followed the rules. The human response had arrived, Bolthan announced. His voice was calm, but everyone in the room sensed his tension. What do they want? Darrell asked. The Krell merchant's face looked pale. His trading empire was crumbling, and now his world was under threat. Everything, Bolthan said quietly. Full reinstatement, immunity for all patent infringements, recognition of equal force. In return they will send fleets to fight the Skrells. The room erupted. No, someone shouted. We cannot reward their defiance, shouted another voice. So what do you propose? Portun asked. His patience was wearing thin. We are losing this war. Every time we argue, more people die. We will revamp our fleet, Darnia said. We will adjust our tactics. If necessary, we will fight like them. How long will that take? Ambassador Terran asked. Months? Years? How many worlds will we lose while we learn to fight dirty? Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew the answer. They didn't have months or years left. Weeks at most. Their hopes were dashed. We will fight with all we have. We will defend our honor. The council has stood for 10,000 years. We will overcome this. Chancellor, said a new voice. It came from the depths of the chamber. The small podium had been silent throughout the discussion. It was a representative of a minority species called the Yaran. May I speak? Foran nodded. Yesterday, the SESR attacked my homeworld, Yaran said, his voice quiet but clear. My family lives there. My children, too. The council fleet had arrived. As per protocol, he had lodged a formal protest and awaited a response. They followed all the rules. The ambassador paused. While they followed the rules, the Scree killed my family, burned cities, and destroyed worlds. Your rules, Chancellor. Your precious honor. Rules mean nothing to an enemy who doesn't care. Volan made no reply. The humans offered to help. Yarin continued. Not out of kindness or forgiveness, but because they understand something we have forgotten. Survival over honor, victory over rules. We agree to accept their terms. Others chimed in. Species whose worlds had been attacked. Species who had lost loved ones. Species who were tired of watching their civilizations perish while the council debated honor. For 3,000 years he had maintained order. For 3,000 years he had upheld the law. But the law was killing his people. The council will take a vote, he said gravely. Everyone voted to accept the humans' terms. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, the green light began to appear. When the count was finished, 400 species had voted in favor, less than half the council. The motion is defeated, Foran declared. We will not accept the humans' term. But as the meeting concluded, something unexpected happened. The Terran ambassador rose to his feet. The Terran coalition will withdraw from this council. We will negotiate with humanity on our own. We will, Yaran said. Then another voice added. Within the hour, 50 species had announced their withdrawal from the Galactic Council. They intended to seek human help themselves. They would accept the conditions the council had rejected. He stood alone in the empty room. The council was dying, not from an attack from without, not from war or conquest. The council was dying from within, torn apart by its own stubbornness. An advisor approached quietly. Chairman, you must reconsider. If 50 races leave, the others will follow. The council will cease to exist. Then let it end, said Boran. His light was now fading and flickering. We will not betray all we have stood for. We will not exact revenge on those who have opposed us, even if it means our downfall, his advisor asked. Bothan did not answer. At Freedom Point, Admiral Okonkwo received the news with mixed feelings. 50 tribes asked for our help. The council itself refused. Ambassador Chen nodded slowly. Then we will help the 50 tribes. We will leave the council alone and let their pride suffer. This war can be ended in a few months, Okonkwo said. If the council accepts our terms, we can send in the entire fleet. The Skrells can be defeated, but they won't, Chen said. They would rather die than admit they were wrong about us. So we do what we can, protect those who trust us, and teach the council a hard lesson. Governor Webb entered the room. Ambassador Admiral, we have news from the front. The Skrells have attacked Exile Prime. Chen and Okonkwo looked at each other. Texari Prime was Vorsen's homeworld, the seat of power for the council. If it fell, the war would be over. The council fleet was responding. Webb continued. But sources told them they were outnumbered 5-1. They couldn't win, and Vorsen would die defending his planet. Chen said quietly. Act honorably, act by all the rules. And when he died, the council would die with him. Okonkwo looked out the window at the human fleet. Thousands of ships ready for battle, ready to save billions of lives but held back by pride and politics. Why don't you go anyway? She asked suddenly. Chen turned to her. Explain. The council has refused our aid, Okano said. But I didn't say I needed their permission. What if we sent a fleet to fight the Skrells instead of saving the council and protecting the galaxy? Webb frowned. The council would be furious. They would call it an invasion. They would say we're violating their sovereignty. Let them, Okano said. We're no longer part of their council. We don't need their permission to protect innocent people. If Fortune wants to die for his pride, that's his choice. but billions of lives need not be lost with him. Chen was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. Admiral Okonkwo, prepare the fleet for deployment. Governor Webb, contact your allies. Tell them we will end this war with or without the Council's approval. Okonkwo saluted. When the Council demands we withdraw, we will tell them the truth, Chen said. We will no longer play by their rules. Not at all. The Earth fleet ceased its faster-than-light travel on the edge of the Exile system. And Admiral Okonkwo smiled. 3,000 human ships, 500 Quellan ships, and another 1,000 from the 50 species that had joined the Confederacy. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Contact the Council fleet, she ordered. Tell them we're here to help. The reply came quickly. Crystalline's face appeared on the main screen. Not that of a young Vexali commander. It was a human fleet. You have no authority to be here. Retreat immediately, Commander Okano said calmly. Your world is under attack. You are outnumbered. We are here to help you whether you want it or not. We do not need your help. We are not asking for it. You are violating Council territory. Failure to withdraw will be considered an act of war. Okano has seen a tactical display. The Skrill fleet is massive. You are engaged in combat with Council forces and already have the upper hand. Commander, you have two choices. Accept our aid and live, or die with your honor. Make your decision quickly. Commander Vexari's light flickered in anger, but before he could reply, another voice cut in. Admiral Okonkwo, this is Supreme Chancellor Vorton. The screen split. Fortune appeared, and Okonkwo saw him standing in a command bunker. Explosions rang out in the background. Vexari Prime was already under fire. Chancellor, Okonkwo said respectfully. Why are you here? Foran asked, his voice tight. 3,000 years of certainty had been eroded by a few months of war. Because people are dying, Okonkwo said simply. Because we can help. And humanity learned long ago that survival is more important than pride. You want us to accept your terms? Foran replied. Full reinstatement, immunity, recognition. No, Okano said, and saw the look of surprise cross Fortune's face. I'm not doing it for reinstatement. I'm not doing it for recognition. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. We can negotiate terms when the war is over. For now, we need to survive. Fortune was silent for a moment. Behind her, another explosion shook the bunker. Understood, Admiral. The Council fleet will engage with you. However, I want to make one thing clear. This does not mean I accept your terms. It does not mean I condone any violation. Understood, Okano said. Now, get your men to safety. We will handle this. She ended the communication and turned to her crew. All ships, form battle formation. Our first priority is the SCR command ship. No formal protest, no corresponding response. We will launch a swift and powerful attack. This is no longer the Council's war. This is our war, and we will fight to win. The Terran fleet began to advance. The Skrells expected the traditional Council response, a formal protest, a carefully planned battle, rules and protocol. They understood nothing. The human ships were moving in patterns Exile had never seen before. Instead of honorable fleet combat, they used guerrilla tactics and hit-and-run attacks, targeting supply lines and command ships. They used psychological warfare, sending messages that sowed fear and confusion. They deployed AI-controlled drones, something the Council had banned centuries ago, and were victorious. The battle for Vexali Prime lasted 6 hours. The Council fleet had been fighting for 3 days, but had made no progress. In 6 hours, the human-led forces had destroyed half of the Scraf fleet, forcing the remaining fleet to retreat in disarray. Captain Exile led the Quellan fleet through the wreckage. Her targeting computer locked onto the fleeing Skrell ship. Should we pursue? The weapons officer asked. No, Exile said. Let them get away. Let them spread the word about what happened here and spread fear. She smiled. That's how wars are won, not with honor, but with fear. For the next 8 months, this pattern repeated across the galaxy. Wherever the Skrells attacked, the human fleets struck back. The Council's permission and rules were only complied with because they were necessary. The war that the Council predicted would last decades ended in a mere 8 months. The Skrell wanted peace with the Earth Federation, not the Council. They recognized humanity as the most powerful military force in the galaxy. However, instead of returning the conquered SCR worlds to the Council, humanity held them. They established a protectorate and gave the SCR inhabitants a choice: join the coalition or continue occupying them. The majority chose to join. 2 years after the expulsion vote, Supreme Chancellor Volan walked through the ruins of what had been the Council's military base. It was on a remote planet that had changed hands 3 times during the war. The council lost it, the screamers took it, the humans liberated it, and the humans kept it. Governor Webb walked next to him. The human looked tired, but satisfied. It's an honor to meet you, Chancellor. We had no other choice, Volsen. You rule this world now, we do. Webb agreed. It was once Skrell territory, along with 47 other nations. We fought for them. We bled for them. And we live for them. That's not how the council works, Forn said. When we go to war, we return territory to its rightful owners. We maintain the status quo, and that's why you're losing, Webb said, bluntly. The galaxy has changed, Chancellor. The council would need to change with it. To what? The current system where the strongest take what they want. No, Webb said. A system where ability trumps age, adaptability trumps tradition. A system where species grow based on contributions, not length of survival. He pointed to the surrounding bases. Look at this place. They rebuilt it in 2 months. Multiple species worked together. There was no bureaucracy like the council, no endless committees, just people solving problems. Boren looked around the base. Webb was right. It was thriving. Humans, Quellen, ex-Skrelry, and even species from council space. Everyone worked together and thrived. The council would not simply disappear. I hope not, Volan said, and Webb replied, the council has a purpose, but it is no longer the sole power in the galaxy. We are here to discuss that. He pulled out a datapad. The Galactic Federation. A new organization that would not replace the council, but would coexist with it. It's open to all species. No patents, no trade restrictions, no rules on expansion, just mutual defense and free trade, Webb continued, adding that there are already 200 member species, 50 of which have left the council. We're offering membership to council species as well. You can join both, or choose one or the other. He picked up his datapad and read it. His light flashed different colors as he processed the information. This would destroy the council. The species would leave en masse, but only if the council refused to adapt. Webb said, Chairman, the traditional rules may be maintained for those who wish, but you must accept that not everyone wants that. Not everyone benefited. 10,000 years, Volsen said quietly. 10,000 years the council maintained peace, and in just 2 years the humans destroyed it all. No, Webb said gently. You maintained stasis for 10,000 years. You called it peace, but it was really domination. The species stayed because they had no other choice. Now they have a choice, and many species are choosing it. Fortune was silent for a long time, then asked, what if the council rejects? What if we reject your Galactic Federation? You will only be one of many powers, Webb said. Not the only power, not the dominant power. There will only be one choice. Each species will choose the system they prefer, Webb said, looking at humanity. You planned it all along, the expulsions, the free ports, the war, everything. Webb smiled. We're going to survive. We're going to thrive. The rest is just a natural progression. You destroyed our civilization, Volsen. No, Webb said firmly. We ended your monopoly. Your civilization still exists, but now you have to compete. The time has come to adapt. Speaker, this is not destruction. It is evolution. 3 months later, Ambassador Chen stood before the remnants of the Galactic Council. Only 500 species were present. The others had either joined the Galactic Federation or declared neutrality. The chamber, once filled with podiums, now looked empty and cold. Volsen sat at the dais in the center. He seemed somewhat small. Ambassador Chen, you requested this audience, Chancellor. Chen said respectfully. I wanted to deliver this message to you personally. The Galactic Federation is not your enemy. We are not trying to destroy the Council. We are simply offering an alternative that will destroy us, Vol said. Every day more species leave. With each passing day, our influence shrinks rather than change, Chen said. By reforming patent laws, relaxing trade restrictions, and allowing our species to expand naturally, we can maintain our values while adapting to new realities. If we change everything, what will that leave the Council? Vorn asked. Chen smiled. A better version. Chancellor, evolution is not easy. It is not easy, but it is necessary. The galaxy you knew, the galaxy that had remained unchanged for 10,000 years, is gone. You can resist the change and die, or accept it and survive. He addressed the room. The Galactic Federation is growing. We are now 200 species, soon to be 300. We are not your enemy, but we are your competitors, and in competition, only those who adapt will thrive. Chen walked toward the exit. At the doorway, he stopped and turned. Chairman Vorsen, 5 years ago, you exiled humanity. You thought we would disappear, but you were wrong. We didn't disappear, we thrived and evolved, and now the galaxy must evolve too. Do you think you won? Vol said. No, Chen said. I think the galaxy won, because now the galaxy has a choice, and now it has competition. Now adapt or perish. It is not a victory for humanity, but a victory for all who want change. He walked out of the chamber. Behind him, Thothan was silent. Around him, the remaining council members were debating. Some wanted to fight the coalition. Others wanted reform. Some were already planning to leave. 5 years after the banishment vote, Chen stood at Freedom Point with Governor Webb and Admiral Okonkwo. They looked out over a transformed galaxy. There were now 300 species in the Galactic Federation. The council still existed, but it was only one power among many. Trade was free, technology was advancing rapidly, and new colonies were springing up everywhere. Did we do the right thing? Okonkwo asked. Did we break the old order? Chen pondered the question. The council had maintained peace, but it was a peace of stagnation, a peace of control. Something was different now. Competition, change, growth. Webb said. It's more chaotic. Life is chaotic. Chen said. Life is chaotic. The council tried to prevent that. They tried to freeze the galaxy in place. We have shown that evolution cannot be stopped. We must accept or resist. A young woman approached them. She was Chen's granddaughter and the newly appointed ambassador to the Confederacy. Grandpa, a delegation from Exile, is here to discuss joining the Confederacy. Chen looked at Webb and Okonkwo in surprise. The people of Vorson, not Vorson himself, said his granddaughter. The younger generation. They say the Chancellor is too old, too stubborn. They want change. Chen felt a tightness in his chest. Not victory. Something more complicated. Tell them I will meet with them. Tell them all races are welcome, as long as they are willing to adapt. After her granddaughter left, Chen turned back to the window. You know what's saddest? Boran isn't evil. There's nothing wrong with valuing peace and order. He's just rigid. He can't adapt. And in an ever-changing galaxy, that's just wrong. What's going to happen to him? Okano asked. Chen said he would remain chairman of the shrinking council, maintaining his rule for the few species that still wanted it. He would watch the galaxy change around him and not understand why he couldn't stop it. It would seem cruel. Webb said. It was necessary. Chen said. Every generation must give way to the next. Every system evolves or perishes. The Volsons had 10,000 years. No one deserves that. Someone's turn now. He smiled at his companion. Plus, he's done us a favor. By banishing us, he's removed the only thing holding humanity back. The obligation to follow rules we didn't make. Now the galaxy follows rules that work for everyone, or at least rules that everyone has agreed to. The Galactic Federation has rules too, Okano pointed out. But we can change them, Chen said. We can adapt and evolve. That's the difference. The Council's rules were eternal. Our rules are flexible. 10 light-years away, Vorson sat alone in the ancient council chamber. The chamber was nearly empty now. Only 100 species still attended regularly. The rest had gone to the Confederacy or were isolated. The advisor approached cautiously. Sir, a Vexali delegation has requested admission to the Galactic Federation. The Pothan's light dimmed. Deny. The Vexali are founding members of the council. We will not abandon the council. Sir, the advisor said gently. They are leaving anyway. The younger generation does not feel bound by traditions they did not create. Ortun was silent. Then he asked, do you think I was wrong about humanity? The advisor pondered the question. I suppose you were right according to the laws and traditions we have followed for 10,000 years, but perhaps those laws and traditions no longer apply in the galaxy we live in today. Then everything I have built has been wrong, Voltun said. No, everything you aspired to was right in its time, the advisor said. But times change, and we cannot change with them. He stood and walked to the edge of the platform. He looked around the empty room. Once this space was filled with 800 platforms. Now there are about, soon that number may be fewer. The humans said that when I banished them, I meant to liberate them. He said quietly. I thought they were rebellious. But they were right. I broke the only chains that held them back, and they used that freedom to change the galaxy. He turned to his advisor.
Perhaps it is time for me to step down, Chancellor. I am 3,000 years old, Forn said. I have served the Council my whole life, but I am unable to adapt. I cannot change. Perhaps we need someone younger, someone to lead the Council into this new era. The advisor bowed. As you wish, Chancellor. Forson looked up at the stars one last time. Somewhere, far away, humanity was forging a new order. Somewhere, far away, the galaxy was changing. After 3,000 years of stability,
All he could do was watch. Perhaps it was meant to be, he muttered to himself. Every era must end. Every order must give way to the next. Humans did not destroy our civilization. They merely signaled that our time had passed. He dimmed the lights and left the room. Behind him, the empty platform floated in the darkness. But somewhere in the galaxy, a new light began to rise. A new order was forming, and new civilizations were being born. The galaxy voted to banish Earth, thinking that this would solve humanity's problems. But in fact, a human revolution had begun that would profoundly change the galaxy for the next 10,000 years. Forsen was silent for a long time, then asked, "What if the Council rejects it? What if we reject your Galactic Federation? Then you become just one of many powers." Webb said, "Not the only power, not the dominant power, just another option. Each species chooses for itself which system they prefer." Four stared at the human. "You planned it all from the beginning. The expulsions, the free ports, the war, everything." Webb smiled. "We planned to survive. We planned to thrive. The rest just took its natural course." "You destroyed our civilization," Forsen said. "No," Webb said firmly. "Your monopoly is over. Your civilization still exists. But now we must compete. We must adapt." "Speaker, it's not destruction, it's evolution." 3 months later, Ambassador Chen stood before the remnants of the Galactic Council. Only 500 species were present. The others had either joined the Galactic Federation or declared neutrality. The chamber, once filled with podiums, now looked empty and cold. Volison sat at the dais in the center. He seemed somewhat small. "Ambassador Chen, you requested this audience, Chancellor," Chen said respectfully. "I wanted to deliver this message to you personally. The Galactic Federation is not your enemy. We are not trying to destroy the Council. We are simply offering an alternative that will destroy us," Forsen said. "Every day, more species leave. With each day, our influence shrinks rather than change. If we reform patent laws, relax trade restrictions, and allow our species to expand naturally, we can maintain our values while adapting to new realities. If we change everything, what will become of what's left of the Council?" Volison asked. Chen smiled. "A better version." "Chancellor, evolution is not easy. It's not easy, but it's necessary. The galaxy you knew, the galaxy that existed unchanged for 10,000 years is gone. You can resist the change and die, or accept it and survive." He addressed the room. "The Galactic Federation is growing. We are now 200 species, soon to be 300. We are not your enemy, but we are your competitors. And in a competition, only those who adapt will thrive." Chen walked toward the exit. At the doorway, he stopped and turned. "Chairman Vorsen, 5 years ago you exiled humanity. Thought we would disappear. But you were wrong. We did not disappear. We thrived and evolved. And now the galaxy must evolve too. Do you think we won?" Fawn said. "No," Chen said. "I think the galaxy won, because now it has a choice. Now the race is on. Now the galaxy must choose to adapt or perish. It's not a victory for humanity. It's a victory for all who want change." He left the council chamber. Behind him, Vorsen sat in silence. Around him, the remaining council members debated. Some wanted to fight the Confederacy. Others wanted reform. Some were already planning to leave. 5 years after the expulsion vote, Chen stood at Freedom Point with Governor Webb and Admiral Okonkwo. They looked out over a transformed galaxy. There were 300 species in the Galactic Federation. The council still existed, but it was only one faction among many. Trade was free, technology was advancing rapidly, and new colonies were springing up everywhere. Had we done the right thing? Okonkwo asked. Had we broken with the old order? Chen pondered the question. The council maintained peace but it was a peace of stagnation, a peace of control. Now we have something different. Competition, change, growth, Webb said. It's more chaotic. It's more chaotic. Chen said. Life is chaotic. The council tried to stop that. They tried to freeze the galaxy in place. We showed them that evolution cannot be stopped. Accept or resist. A young woman approached. She was Chen's granddaughter and her grandfather, the newly appointed Union ambassador. A delegation from Exile had arrived and wanted to discuss joining the Union. Chen looked at Webb and Okonkwo in surprise. They were Vorlon people, not Vorlons themselves. The granddaughter said, "The younger generation says the prime minister is too old, too stubborn. They want change." Chen felt a tightness in his chest. Not a victory, but something more complicated. "Tell them I'll meet with them." Tell them we welcome all races willing to adapt. After his granddaughter left, Chen turned back to the window. You know what's saddest? Boronan isn't evil. There's nothing wrong with valuing peace and order. He's just rigid. He can't adapt. And in an ever-changing galaxy, that's just wrong. What's going to happen to him? Okung Kuo asked. Chen replied that he would remain chairman of the shrinking council. His rule would be maintained for the few species that still wanted it. He would watch the galaxy change around him, and not understand why he couldn't stop it. It seemed cruel, Webb said. It was necessary, Chen said. Every generation must give way to the next. Every system evolves or perishes. Bourne had lived 10,000 years. That's too many for any of us. Now it was someone else's turn. He smiled at his people, and he had done us a favor. By banishing us, he had removed the only thing holding humanity back. An obligation to follow rules we didn't make. The galaxy now follows rules that work for everyone, or at least rules that everyone agrees to. The Galactic Confederation has rules, Okuno pointed out, but Chen said we can change the rules. We can adapt and evolve the rules. That's the difference. The Council's rules were eternal. Our ways are flexible. 10 light-years away, Vorson sat alone in the ancient council chamber. The room was nearly empty now. Only 100 species still attended regularly. The rest had left for the Confederation, or been driven into isolation. Vorson's advisor approached cautiously. Sir, a delegation from Exile has requested admission to the Galactic Federation. Vorson's light dimmed, and the denial was immediate. Exile was a founding member of the Council. We will not abandon the Council, President, the advisor said gently. They will leave anyway. The younger generation does not feel bound by traditions they did not build. Ortona was silent, then asked, do you think I was wrong about the humans? The advisor considered the question. I suppose you were right. According to the laws and traditions we have followed for 10,000 years. But perhaps those laws and traditions no longer apply in the galaxy we now live in, said Voltun. Then everything I have built has been wrong, said Voltun. No, said his advisor. Everything you built was right in its time, but times have changed, and we have not changed with it. Four stood and walked to the edge of the platform. He looked around the empty room. This space used to be filled with 800 platforms. Now it's 100. That may soon be fewer. When we banished them, the humans said we were going to set them free. He said quiet. He thought it sounded defiant, but it was true. I had broken the only chains that bound them, and they had used that freedom to change the galaxy. He turned to his advisors. Perhaps it is time for me to step down, Chancellor. I am 3,000 years old, said Misfortune. I have served the Council for many years, but I cannot adapt. I cannot change. Perhaps it was time for someone younger to lead the Council into this new era. The advisor bowed. As you wish, Chancellor. Fortune looked up at the stars one last time. Somewhere, far away, humanity was forging a new order. Somewhere, far away, the galaxy was changing. And after 3 millennia of stability, he could only watch. Perhaps, he said to himself, it must be so. Every era must end. Every order gives way to another. Humans did not destroy our civilization. They merely marked the passing of our time. He dimmed the light and left the room. Behind him, the empty platform floated in the darkness. But somewhere in the galaxy, a new light began to rise. A new order was forming, and new civilizations were being born. The galaxy voted to banish Earth, thinking that this would solve humanity's problems. But in fact, a human revolution had begun that would profoundly change the galaxy for the next